everyone, lovely to have you with me. It's Carol here at Oak House Journals. Would you believe that we're on week 30 of 2024? So obviously I'm going to be doing assignment number 30 for Margarete Miller's Collage Challenge that we've been doing every week this year. So I've got the prompts here and my prompt pieces. The first one is something associated with a specific place that you visited. Well, I've pulled this page out of this book here by Wainwright, and it's Walking on Howgill Fells and the adjoining fells. And why I've picked this is because of this little stone footbridge over Langdale Beck. Now, I went there many years ago with a very dear friend of mine, so it is a very specific place, not known by that many people, but it is also a very special place for me. It has a lot of personal and sentimental meaning. So I've got this page, and if I open up the book, there is actually a photograph of that little footbridge, and it looks like that. Well, it doesn't look like that now. This book is quite an old book, as you can see from the price here. This is substantially now more overgrown, and whilst I say it's a place not known by many people, it is now known by a good few people. So I'm going to be using this, and I will be cutting it down because I don't want these two other images that are associated with Langdale Beck. I just want this image and the writing. So that's my first prompt piece. The second one is something ornate. Well, I've chosen some wallpaper. I actually think this is absolutely gorgeous wallpaper. I use it a lot in my journals and it's very pretty, but when you see the whole width of the wallpaper with all the decoration on it in this sort of limed white, it is very, I would say, bold and in your face. It's certainly not minimalistic. So I'm going to use a portion of that on my piece today. The third prompt is textured paper. Now, originally I was going to use this piece of paper, brown paper that I've pulled from a book, and I was going to use this stencil and put some texture paste on here. But given that I'm using that and also a tag, a clothing tag, which is one of the other prompts, I think this is going to be too close to the other colours, and it's going to give me a very bland look. So as much as I would love to do this, I have discounted using it, so I'm going to pop that to one side, and instead I've got some embossed paper here, as you can see. So this is the de-embossed side, that's the embossed side, and if I run my hand over it, either way there is a texture to it, and I probably will be using that side, the embossed side. I've also got some other pieces here because I think I might be using those as well. Not too sure, but I've got them as standbys in the background. So that's my third prompt. The fourth prompt is a flower or plant, and as you can see here, I've got a few bits. So first of all, I've got some dried hydrangeas, so I'm just going to put those on one side. So these were real hydrangea flowers or florets, and I might use those. I've got this label here with a sticker on it, and it's a rose, so I could use that. But I think the one I am going to try and use is this image here, which I tried to fussy cut a while ago, and it was beyond me really. The roots were too detailed, and also, as you can see in here, all these white pieces. But I'm not going to bother about that. I'm going to try and use this piece, and I've got a couple of leaves there and a sprig here that broke off in the course of my snipping away trying to fussy cut this one out, and I may well just try and position those on my piece today. If I don't use that, then obviously I've got these to fall back on. So that's that. Fifth prompt is a clothing tag, and I'm not going to use a clothing tag as in a tag cut from a piece of clothing that I bought. I'm going to use this, which is for when you take in a piece of clothing for repairs. I still think this is a clothing tag because you would take it into your alteration or repair shop, and they would put one piece on your piece of clothing that's going to have attention, and the other piece they would give to you. So it still relates to clothing, so I'm going to be using that. And finally, bonus, a sewing stitch, real, drawn or stamped. Well, I'm going to do some real stitching on my piece. It might not be hand stitching, I might do some machine stitching on here, and if I can find some green cotton to match this, I'll be doing it in the green. And as always, so let me pop this to one side, lots of little bits to lose today. As always, I've got my background piece of paper here that I'm going to be working on, and if you watch my channel, I'm always saying it, I'm going to be working inside this penciled border on here. So that goes up there, and first off I'm going to just trim round this, and I'm going to cut away a portion of this, and I think I'm going to use just that portion there. So let me go away and do those, and then I will be back. I've trimmed this one down to size, as you can see, so that's the little bit that was off the left-hand edge, so I'm just going to pop those to one side. So that's trimmed, and I've trimmed off a piece of the wallpaper, so again that can go off to one side. And to start with, I'm just going to pop this on here, no particular rhyme or reason. Let's bring in this. And the reason I've gone for the dark green is because I think it will pick up the dark green leaves on here. Let me just bring these into frame for you. And I've got more bits dropping off this by the second. There's some roots coming off there, but hopefully it'll stay intact. Right, okay, so I'm going to have that, something like that. I've got it lined up to my right-hand border, and this piece of textured paper off to my left-hand border, but that's giving me too much down here. I don't want that. I want really to try and bring that in a little bit. Let's use the tag first, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get more or less an equal border there and there, so it needs to come down slightly. Obviously I've got it higher on my piece than I need to bring it down if I go with it in that orientation. And then if I bring this in, let me just weight that down. I'm going to cover up most of the writing, drop it down a little bit like that, and just have it so that it's lining up with this line here, but covering it, so like that. I've got a bigger gap on this side, or a bigger edge of the green on that side, so I'm going to move it over, and I think that's more or less equal here, here and here. I'm not bothered about at the bottom there. And let's bring in this. Now I'm wondering whether to have something like that, or maybe take it in. No, I think I'm liking that there, covering up the numbers but leaving that NO abbreviation there. Something like that, so I can still see my bridge. I'm not liking that it's level with the bottom, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the whole thing up like that, and then pull the whole thing back down. Just kind of getting a feel for where I want things to go at the moment. Trying to stagger this a little bit so that it's not level with the leg of the end there, but it's so faint you can't really see, and that's why I was thinking I might use one of these to actually put in a line of green there, or I might just rely on my stitching and do some stitching around there. But let's go back to this. That placement is better if I have that there. I'm getting some of the green below it, which is quite nice. And let's go with this one. This is the one I really would like to use. It's nice and delicate, and I'm going to move this across actually so that it's out here, because I don't want it to obscure my image of the bridge. Something like that on there, like that. Cover up the rose that was on this label. I'm going to drop that down a little bit and I'm going to angle it, still covering up that rose, and have it going onto this picture, onto the green here and off the bottom there. Not so sure about this label, so let me try tucking it underneath and see if I like that any better. And yes, I do. Oh, that's much better. Yes. I'm liking how it's breaking up this image. The one thing that's given me a little bit of pause is this area here. And I might see if I've got a stamp to try and pick up that colour. But what I am going to do is I'm going to put a line of stitching all the way round this image here of the footbridge, and I'm going to see if I can find some green. These little pieces here go off the bottom, that bit came off the bottom of that, and one of those leaves will go onto the bottom there, and I'm thinking of making use of this little bit here to go up and onto my picture. Might snip it off there, I don't know. But first things first, I need to stitch round my image there. So I'm going to go away and do that, and hopefully that will be it, other than gluing it all together, which is amazing for me. I don't even want to use more of those, and I don't want to change out my hydrangeas, because I actually think if I put those on there, whilst they are lovely, I think they're too big, and I also think that they're too close in colour, and I don't have enough really on here to give me an accent. This becomes my focal element, and your eye is immediately drawn to that. I love the neutral tones of this piece, and this piece, and the label is more or less picking up that brown. It's a little bit lighter than that, but the colour on this one works better, and the play of the green with the leaves. And it's just occurred to me whether, instead of putting a stamp up there, I could maybe just find a way to incorporate this up there as well. No, I still think a stamp might be nice up there, or a label of some sort. I'll see what I can find. Right, I'm going to disappear off now, everybody, and I'm going to dig out my sewing machine, do that line of stitching, and see if I can find a stamp, and then I'll be back. This has been stitched all the way round on my sewing machine. I've used a couple of lines of green Gutman's just machine thread, and I'm just going to smooth off the back with my bone folder so that it sits nicer when it's glued in place. And you've spotted probably that there's no book text on the back. I've just put a piece of lightweight paper on the back just to double this up, because this was quite flimsy paper. And I've gone through my stash, and bizarrely I've come across this stamp, which I think is the same, or perhaps the same flower. If not, it's very close. It might be too much to use them together, but we'll see. I've got this one, which has got the same sort of colour tones for the background and the same greens for the main part of the foliage. And then I've got this one, which I think might be too big. But anyway, I've got some options there to play with. So let's have a look and see what they look like. I want to break up this corner up here, but this is going to give me a little bit of an issue. If I put that in there, I think that's too big, which is a shame, because I think it actually works. I hope you can see what I'm doing, everybody, because the sun's decided to come out. This one is lovely, but I'm not liking that angled piece up there. And if I cover it up, that doesn't work for me. And if I move it over, I'm definitely not liking that bit. Turn it round. Now that could work if I move it up and over slightly like that. Whoops, everything's moving as always. And I could have it slightly raised up there, but but then I'm not liking this edge down here. And if I move it further across, then I start getting that angle there. So that's not going to work. That way is definitely not going to work. And similarly with this one, because this is the same orientation as this one. So that's not going to work. We could maybe stagger those two. Let's have a look at that. That does look a bit better. Okay, so what else can I do? I could turn this one sideways like that and level it up across the top, but I'm not liking that. Can I make use of this one tucked in the back perhaps, so that I'm getting a hint of the green there and there? Okay, so what about putting that in there? If I put that in there like that. So I'm making use of all three stamps to frame each other, and this one gives me a bit of depth. Yep, I'm liking that. I'm going to go with that, everybody. So what I need to do is put some glue behind this one. And actually, I'm just going to go ahead and just glue all of these pieces in place now, because I've worked out how I want my composition to be on here. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue all these together, and I'll come back at the end. So here we go, everybody. This is my finished assignment for this week. I've rubbed out my border and everything is glued down. So I hope you like it, and let's quickly go through the prompt. Something associated with a specific place you visited. Well, this little footbridge at Langdale Beck in the Lake District. Something ornate. Well, I went with this, I think, ornate piece of wallpaper in the back there. Textured paper, that's my dark green paper here. A flower or plant, well, that's this fussy cut image down here. A clothing tag, well, I went with this alteration repair tag here for clothes. And bonus, a sewing stitch, real, drawn or stamped. Well, I went with real stitching, straight stitching on my sewing machine in dark green thread to outline this little image here from the Wainwright book. So there we go, everybody. I'll take some photographs so that you can have a closer look at the end. But thank you as always for watching. Hope you enjoyed seeing this one come together, and hope you'll join me next week for week 31. Until then, have a great week. Bye from me. Bye bye.